Have you ever felt stuck when trying to learn English? Struggling to remember new words? Hesitating before you speak? Or feeling frustrated because no matter how much you study, the words just don't come out right? Learning a language, especially one as tricky as English, can feel overwhelming. Maybe you've spent hours memorizing grammar rules, crammed vocabulary lists late at night, or even avoided speaking out of fear of making mistakes. But what if learning English didn't have to be so hard? What if there were science-backed techniques to help you learn faster, remember more, and speak with confidence effortlessly? Hey everyone, welcome back to Fluent English Pod, where we help you train your mind to think in English and speak fluently. I'm Dave with our co-host Emma.
Hey, we're so glad you're here. Whether you're listening on your way to work, while making dinner, or just winding down for the day, thanks for spending this time with us.
Whether you are a new listener or a long-time one, we welcome you to our English podcast. Let's hear our today's topic.
We're talking about something that's been on my mind a lot lately. How to learn smarter, not harder. I mean, who doesn't want to absorb information like a sponge, right?
Absolutely. And let's be real, we've all been there. Cramming for exams, trying to learn a new skill overnight, or just feeling like we're not retaining anything no matter how hard we try. But what if I told you there are some science-backed hacks that can make learning faster, easier, and even fun?
Fun, huh?
Yes, Emma, let's start with the basics. How does our brain actually learn? I mean, we've all heard that repetition is key, but what's really going on up there? Is it just about cramming information, or is there more to it?
Great question, Dave. And you're right. It's so much more than just repetition. Our brain is like this incredible, dynamic network of connections. Imagine it as a bustling city with roads, bridges, and pathways. Every time we learn something new, it's like we're building a new road or strengthening an existing one. These roads are the connections between neurons, and the more we use them, the stronger and more efficient they become. That's why repetition helps. It's like paving a dirt road into a highway. But here's the thing, it's not just about how often you use that road, but how you use it.
That's such a vivid way to put it. So it's not just about going over the same material over and over again, but about how we engage with it. I've heard this term, active learning, thrown around a lot. What does that really mean, and why is it so effective?
Oh, active learning is where the magic happens. Think of it this way. If passive learning is like watching a cooking show, active learning is actually getting into the kitchen, chopping the vegetables, and tasting the dish as you go. It's about interacting with the material, asking questions, making connections, and applying what you've learned in real time. For example, if you're learning a new language, instead of just memorizing vocabulary lists, you're having conversations, writing sentences, and maybe even thinking in that language. This kind of engagement forces your brain to process the information deeply, which makes it stick.
That makes so much sense. So it's like shifting from being a spectator to being a participant. Instead of just absorbing information, we're wrestling with it, questioning it, and making it our own. Like, if I'm learning about history, I shouldn't just memorize dates and events. I should ask, why did this happen? What were the consequences? How does this relate to what's happening in the world today?
Exactly. You're not just storing facts in your brain like a filing cabinet. You're weaving them into a story, a context, and that's where true understanding happens. Let me give you another example. Say you're learning about photosynthesis. Instead of just memorizing the formula, you could think about how plants in your garden or the trees outside your window are using sunlight to create energy. You could even experiment by placing a plant in a dark room and observing what happens. That's active learning. You're engaging with the concept on a deeper level.
I love that. It's like turning learning into an adventure rather than a chore. And it's so much more fun that way, too. But here's something I've always wondered. Why do we forget things so easily? Like, I can study for hours, but a week later, it's like my brain has hit the reset button. What's going on there?
The age-old problem of forgetting. It's frustrating, isn't it? But here's the thing. Forgetting is actually a natural part of the learning process. Our brains are designed to prioritize information that seems important or relevant. If you cram for an exam, your brain might think, okay, this is urgent, but it's not necessarily important long term. So it stores that information in your short term memory, and unless you revisit it, it fades away. That's where spaced repetition comes in. It's like a hack to trick your brain into thinking, hey, this is important, let's keep it around.
Spaced repetition? I've heard of that, but I'm not entirely sure how it works. Can you break it down for us?
Absolutely. Spaced repetition is all about timing. Instead of cramming all your studying into one session, you spread it out over time. For example, let's say you're learning new vocabulary words. You might review them the next day, then a few days later, then a week later, and so on. Each time you revisit the material, you're reinforcing those neural pathways, making them stronger and more durable. It's like watering a plant. You don't drown it all at once. You give it a little water regularly to help it grow.
That's such a great analogy. So it's not about how much you study, but how strategically you study. And I guess this is why cramming doesn't work in the long run. It's like flooding the plant once and then forgetting about it.
Exactly. Cramming might get you through the exam, but it won't help you retain the information for life. Spaced repetition, on the other hand, is like building a habit. It's slow and steady, but it pays off in the long run. And here's a pro tip. You can use tools like flashcards or apps that are designed to space out your reviews automatically. They'll show you the information just as you're about to forget it, which is the perfect time to reinforce it.
That's genius. So it's like having a personal trainer for your brain. And I guess this applies to more than just academics, right? Like if you're learning a new skill, say playing the guitar or cooking, you'd want to practice regularly but not all at once.
Absolutely. Spaced repetition works for almost anything you're trying to learn. Let's say you're learning to play a new song on the guitar. You practice it today, then again in a couple of days, then a week later. Each time, you're building muscle memory and reinforcing the neural pathways involved in playing that song. Over time, it becomes second nature. The same goes for cooking. If you're trying to master a new recipe, you'll get better each time you make it, especially if you space out your attempts and reflect on what worked and what didn't.
That's so practical. And it's such a relief to know that learning doesn't have to be this overwhelming, all or nothing process. It's about being consistent and intentional. So, to sum it up, our brains learn by building and strengthening connections. Active learning helps us engage deeply with the material, and spaced repetition helps us retain it over time. Is that right?
Nailed it, Dave. And the beauty of it is that these strategies don't just make learning more effective, they make it more enjoyable too. When you're actively engaged and seeing real progress, it's incredibly rewarding. So, whether you're learning a new language, picking up a hobby, or just trying to remember where you left your keys, these principles can help you get there.
I love that. Learning isn't just about passing exams or ticking boxes. It's about growing, exploring, and becoming the best version of ourselves. Thanks for breaking it down so clearly, Emma. I think our listeners are going to walk away from this with a whole new perspective on how to learn smarter, not harder.
Your brain is capable of amazing things. All it takes is a little curiosity, a lot of engagement, and the right strategies. Talking about engagement, that's the main reason why we ask our listeners to comment down new vocabulary you learn daily through the podcast. When we build a community of English learners, we could learn faster without making our brains tired. So, comment down all the new words you learned today.
That's a great way to learn. So guys, comment down below all the new words you learn. All right, let's talk about something we all love. Sleep. How does sleep actually help us learn?
Oh, sleep is like the ultimate brain hack. When you sleep, your brain goes into overdrive, organizing and storing everything you learned during the day. It's like hitting the save button on a document.
So if I don't get enough sleep, I'm basically leaving my brain's work unsaved. That's terrifying.
Right? And here's another tip. Studying right before bed can actually help you remember things better. So, maybe swap out that late-night Netflix binge for a quick review session.
Noted. Now, what about curiosity? I feel like when I'm genuinely curious about something, I learn it so much faster. Is there science behind that?
Absolutely. Curiosity triggers the release of dopamine in your brain, which is like a natural motivator. When you're curious, your brain is more engaged and you're more likely to remember what you're learning.
So, curiosity is like the secret sauce of learning. Got it. How can we stay curious, though? Sometimes, let's be honest, learning can feel like a chore.
Totally. One trick is to ask yourself questions as you're learning, like, why is this important? Or, how can I use this in real life? It keeps your brain active and makes learning feel more like an adventure.
Let's take a moment and explain some of the difficult words we use today. First up, dynamic. Something that's constantly changing or full of energy. Like when we said the brain is a dynamic network of connections, we meant it's always active and adapting.
How about reinforce, which means to strengthen or support something? For example, the teacher used real-life examples to reinforce the lesson, making it easier for the students to understand. It's like adding an extra layer of strength or clarity.
Here's one I think our listeners will find useful. Context. Circumstances or setting that help explain something. For example, to fully appreciate this novel, you need to understand the historical context in which it was written.
Let's do one more. How about retain? Keep or hold on to something. For example, she takes detailed notes during meetings to help her retain important information. It's all about keeping something in your memory or possession.
Before we wrap up, as usual, we've got a fun exercise for our listeners to practice their English skills. Emma, what do you have for us today?
I've got a fun one for you all. It's a word-finding challenge. I'm going to give you a sentence with a blank, and your task is to find the perfect word to fill in the gap. But here's the twist. The word has to start with the letter D. Ready? Here's the sentence. After hours of practice, she finally mastered the piano piece, feeling a sense of blank as she played it flawlessly in front of the audience.
We will check in the comment section. What are the words you got? And as we wrap up today's episode, we will revisit some of the points we discussed, like how our brains learn, exploring the power of active learning, and also shared some game-changing strategies such as the spaced repetition technique. We hope these insights inspire you to approach learning in a whole new way, smarter, more intentional, and most importantly, more enjoyable.
Absolutely, Dave. Remember, learning isn't just about memorizing facts or acing exams. It's about growing, exploring, and unlocking your full potential. Whether you're mastering a new skill, diving into a new language, or just trying to remember where you left your keys, these tools are here to help you succeed.
And don't forget, learning is a journey, not a race. It's okay to take your time, make mistakes, and revisit what you've learned. Every step you take is progress, and every challenge you face is an opportunity to grow.
We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, tips, or stories about your own learning journey, drop them in the comments or reach out to us on social media. Let's build a community of curious, lifelong learners who support and inspire each other.
Thanks for joining us today, and remember, your brain is capable of incredible things. All it takes is a little curiosity, the right strategies, and a whole lot of heart.
Until next time, keep hacking your mind, stay curious, and never stop learning. This is Emma.
And Dave, signing off. See you in the next episode of Fluent English Pod. Take care, everyone.